There are doors everywhere, and all of them locked. Suddenly, I saw something moving between two yew trees. A dim white figure.
The Threshold Paranormal Podcast starts now.
All right, thanks for tuning in to another episode. This is episode number
9.
We're going to question mark that one. We don't know. We're out here at Salt Fork State Park in what part of Ohio is this?
Guernsey County.
Guernsey County.
Southeast Ohio.
So we're out here. It's about a 3-hour drive, but went through some rain.
A lot of rain. It's been
a
torrential,
wet ride, but we made it. So today we're gonna really dive into Bigfoot. We're gonna hit it. We're gonna hit this one again. If you're tired of Bigfoot, then I don't know. Don't
Find
watch
a different
it.
podcast.
Yeah. Watch someone else.
Click the recommended.
So who's our special guest, Dylan? We got another special guest.
This is John Hickenbottom, naturalist here at Salt Fork. John, what is a naturalist?
Yeah, so I get that question a lot. And after I explain that we don't run around naked,
that's what I thought.
Yeah. I handle all of the public education, so all of the hikes, public programming, canoe trips, things like that. Then also, keep track of the bird lists and all of the wildlife stuff here in the park. We do outreach with schools. My partner with our County Board of Developmental Disabilities quite a bit for fishing tournaments and things like that. So, so things like that. We're mostly educating. Like that's my goal, is to educate the public on conservation, wildlife, things like that.
I know you said you've been really busy this year.
It's been pretty crazy. Yeah,
Everybody's been cooped up and locked in for a year, and everyone's like, "Get me out."
My office is on the public beach. That's hopefully that will change, but the public beach has been busier than I've ever. And I grew up here. So it's been busier than I've ever seen it.
You ever seen it?
So,
wow. So I know this is like kind of the Bigfoot mecca of Ohio.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for the park? Like, what do you guys see? Do you get like a lot of people specifically coming looking for that?
We do get a lot of people specifically coming looking for that. That's what I always tell folks this time of year. You have to take encounters with a grain of salt, because there could be 3 groups staying in the campground. So if you get, a howl, there's nothing guaranteeing that it's not a recording from another group.
It could be Jerry from across the
yeah,
lake.
right. It could be the group from Pennsylvania that's here, or the group that's from Kentucky that's here, or our local group that's here. So yeah, we get a lot of people who specifically come here looking for Bigfoot. On the other side of that, we also get a lot of families who found the Bigfoot thing, whether it was through the Bigfoot conference or through the YouTube videos that we did. And we get a lot of families who come here, and Bigfoot is kind of a joke to them, their kids are interested in it, so they're indulging their kids. So we also get that,
Yeah.
But yeah, I get a lot of, usually about on a weekly basis, someone tells me their Bigfoot encounter story. I usually get about one a week. And I never get anybody that walks into the nature center with like torn clothes and twigs in their hair, saying like, I just saw it,
It's in the back of my truck.
I get interesting secondhand stories. I had a crazy uncle who saw this thing, that sort of thing.
Back in 72.
I talked to a gentleman this morning that claimed to, and I kind of had him pegged as soon as he asked. He's like, "Have you done those videos?" And I'm pretty sure he wasn't talking about the turtle videos. You know what I mean? I could kind of tell.
You could read
and
them.
So we talked to Bigfoot, and he told me about his encounters. He's up by Cuyahoga, and he told me about his encounters that he's had. So about once a week.
Was it one of those people that are like, Bigfoot talked to me with his mind?
No, I get that. I always tell people.
Those are my favorite ones.
My favorite to talk to are the people who are like outdoors people. They're hunters, fishermen. They don't really have a dog in the Bigfoot fight. They don't really have anything to gain from.
They're in it just by.
Yeah, and they'll say, "Oh, I was out night fishing and got rocks thrown at me." I've never seen anything like, or we heard this thing. Those are my favorites, because it's like, well, they're really just telling their story to kind of get it off their chest. I have talked to people who are like clearly having a psychotic episode.
We did a kind of a little town hall talk, And it was one of my all-time favorite encounters over like a Bigfoot thing. This guy was an ex-cop.
Yeah.
Hunting on his own like family land out of a clear cut for power lines. And he's like, I'm not a Bigfoot believer. He'd never been interested in his life, never read a book about it, never watched TV about it, had no involvement in it. And he said he watched something about 8-9 foot tall come out of the other wood line. He drew his gun up at it to see it through the scope. And he said he remembers the tree it was under, what branch it was under. He said it looked at him. He couldn't make out any definite detail. He goes, but there was no way it was a guy. Just the size of it, the overall shape of it and everything. He said, and just walked back in the woods. The next day he came out and measured that branch. And I can't remember exactly how tall he said it was, but you could tell it messed him up. And especially with his, law enforcement background and stuff, those people, their eyewitness reports are hold up in court.
Hold a little bit more
yeah,
weight.
So
Yeah.
for him to be that up front, and he said it creeped him out. It kind of, which I could find identifiable. He said it kind of changed the way he like looked at the woods. It changed the way not the way you interact with them and stuff, but it changed your whole view of, what could be out there, the possibility of what could be there.
And that's everyone, I talk to about Bigfoot, even just the public. People ask all the time, do you believe, And I always say, like, I'm a pretty solid fence sitter, because I do. There is a small minority of people who come to Salt Fork who don't care about Bigfoot. So I also that's like also part of my job, and so I kind of straddle that world, and some mornings I wake up and I'm like, oh no, something totally could be out here. I'm convinced something could be out here. And other mornings I wake up and I'm like,
there's nothing.
Man, yeah, it's awful, And it kind of depends on who I've been talking to. If I've got 100 people who came in telling me that they saw Bigfoot disappear into a cloud of purple smoke,
right.
or things like that.
A Grateful Dead shirt.
Yeah, right. Like
what were you eating and or smoking before that happened?
And but then I talk to people who, like you said, people who are reliable witnesses, and sometimes I'm out there. I know this park really well, and sometimes I'm out there and I'm like, something could totally be out here, but I don't know. And I think that's one of the fantastic things about this. I try to, when we do the Bigfoot hikes, I try to say like the mystery of it is a big part of it. That's part of the fun. That's part of the,
certainly a lure.
The lure of it is part of what makes it cool. And we don't do the Bigfoot hikes with a wink. We don't do it in any sort of we don't do it like with any sort of melodrama. It is pretty, like, we bring in pretty carefully vetted researchers to do these Bigfoot hikes and stuff, but we also try to keep it light and fun for families,
especially for the kids.
Yeah, right. With the kids, we're not setting up blinds and having them set all night with a flare. You know what I mean? Like if
it gets cold, light this fire.
Yeah,
survive.
Yeah, but that's. So we try to keep it light. Also, I mean, within the park, we don't hoax anything. I get that question quite a bit, because I'll get people who come up and they're like, come on, you guys, you sell Bigfoot plushies in the gift store. Like, you guys, you're telling me. And I'm like, no, like, first off, the park staff in general, again, we have an actual job to do out here, and that is not going out and stomping around in big goofy wooden feet. Right. That's not part of our job.
Where are you hiding the feet, John?
Right, yeah. And tell us. And also, we've got a good relationship with a lot of the researchers. Like, I work with a lot of the researchers, and we try to maintain the integrity that they have, So I always discourage, if I get like someone's funny uncle who decides they're going to dress up in a hairy suit, I always try to tell them, like, okay, I know it sounds real fun. Do it on the 4th of July at your house,
don't do it here.
But don't do it here, because that's a mistake,
This is rural Ohio.
Yeah, right. It is like rural Ohio.
Also, someone needs to get paid.
Also, the Bigfoot researchers like to, part of what they're trying to achieve is to get the taboo taken away from it. And if you've got a bunch of people dressing up, it ruins it for everybody. It ruins it for everybody, So we don't hoax. We try to maintain that integrity, Now, of course, I am hosting Bigfoot hikes and doing the YouTube videos and stuff. So I guess we do exploit it a little bit. It draws people out, but that's also a big part of my goal is to draw people outside and get them to start thinking about conservation and nature and wildlife. So
I just a couple. So this is the largest state park in Ohio, right?
Yep.
And so do you guys like catch any flack from other parks for being like
The Bigfoot
for
park.
running with the whole Bigfoot thing? Is that
I can't speak for every employee. I catch some flack from other naturalists occasionally. But again, I also have my 350 people that show up to a hike.
Exactly,
I can always just point to my big fat numbers, or I can also point to
your 7 people hike.
Yeah, right. I can also point to my 287,000 views on our channel. You know what I mean? So I don't think too much about any flack that
Is that like how would I want to like? So you guys, I'm sure, work directly with like the ODNR and everything else. Like, do they? Is the state itself like supportive of you guys running with that? Like, using the Bigfoot thing, and
during
because it's not because of what it is, because it's kind of a taboo subject.
I wouldn't say I actually got accused. It's funny. I got accused of being like a whistleblower, saying that we finally acknowledged the existence of Bigfoot. And I think it was probably someone who didn't watch the videos
in its entirety.
Yeah. Because I never say that we acknowledge. Yeah, because again, I work with animals that we can go to a museum and see, and we have like the Nature Center has taxidermy of animals that actually existed, and we've got snakes and turtles that actually exist, and that we know exist. So I'm always pretty careful about that. The idea behind, so they're supportive of the message, because my message ultimately is Bigfoot as it's a conservation movement, in my opinion. I'm getting people out thinking about nature, thinking about, I'm going to need replaced eventually. You need
to get more people involved.
So if there's a kid that decides he wants to become a naturalist because he wants to go out and look for Bigfoot, so be it.
Right.
That's the I decided I wanted to become a naturalist because Steve Irwin's job was already taken. Right. You know what I mean? So like if I have one kid that thinks this is really cool, I get to go. I could make a career out of looking for Bigfoot, and he takes my job when I retire. So be it. So. Part of the reason why they're supportive of it is because we're getting that park message out. We're getting people out into nature. There's, people are supporting parks. I mean, we're a public park, and, we try to serve the public, and this is what the public wants. The public wants Bigfoot. With that, I mean, I see a lot of compelling evidence and hear a lot of compelling stories, like we were talking about, outdoorsmen, people who saw something, and it would seem to brush that under the rug would kind of do a disservice to the Bigfoot community also. I mean, this being a Bigfoot mecca, and we do work closely with them. I just actually recently talked to some folks who were looking for other public land to use for Bigfoot research because they were trying to get to Hocking Hills. Well, Hocking Hills has dangerous cliffs and things like that. They have a trail law. You don't go off trail at Hocking Hills. People fall off of things, So you
Very
don't
easy to get injured out there.
You don't go off trail. Like Hocking Hills is a beautiful place, and it's not only just injury. It's a beautiful place. They want to maintain that picturesque beauty. So they were looking to go off trail at Hocking Hills, and then they, obviously they were told no. So they were asking me about other parks that might be open to the idea of welcoming Bigfoot researchers, other parks other than Salt Fork. Because a lot of researchers kind of think that Salt Fork might be overfished, especially this time of year, which I could agree from like if we're looking at Bigfoot as like a wild animal, the
more pressure you put on
the
it,
more pressure you put on it.
That was one of our questions is like, as good as it is to have people out there actively looking and actively engaging in the subject in general, you're kind of, the sword cuts both ways.
It does.
So you are getting feet on the ground, and you're getting people out there actively looking, but with that you have an incredible amount of foot traffic through the area, and large groups, like you said, a 350 people turnout. The possibility of seeing something there,
the possibility of seeing a rabbit
while you're marching an army through the woods. It's just, I understand it and it's good, but it's equally as good to do it as it is kind of detrimental if the animal is in the area, because the animal's not going to stay around. You know, if you go traipsing around, when you're hunting in general,
right,
you can't just go barreling through the wood. You're gonna nothing's gonna hang around.
No.
Right.
So that's kind of what gets me with the whole thing. Like I understand why, you know, this is the Bigfoot park. This is, you know, what it is, but as cool as it is and as interesting as it is, all these people coming in, you're like, you guys scared everything away.
Well, that's really where the conservation aspect of it comes in.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm sure that your goal as a naturalist is not go find Bigfoot so everyone can see it.
Right. I mean, as much as I would love to take
awesome.
credit for it, like to be able to like give the Latin name for it. Yeah.
Oh,
As much as I would love to take credit for it, that's not my ultimate goal. Like my ultimate goal is to get people out. You know, we mentioned before we started recording, like sometimes on the adult hike, like the after dark hike, I get a lot of people whose favorite phrase is, well, actually, you know, and I get a lot of people who are negative about it. They show up just to kind of bash
the piss and moan the whole time.
Right. About the Bigfoot thing, you know, that's also has its place. Cause if I get one person who's like, thinks it's a big joke, well, it's like, okay, so exercise some of your critical thinking skills. Tell me why it's, you know what I mean? So I can, the idea of education is important. And the Bigfoot thing is fascinating. I mean, a big part of a naturalist job, like we're considered interpreters, but not like we're not interpreting language. You know, an interpreter in this sense is we take, you know, abstract, complex ecological ideas and break them apart into digestible pieces for the public, so that, you know, we don't dumb it down, but we make it, you know, we can communicate ideas.
The Cliff Notes.
Right. Yeah, we can communicate ideas in conservation. Well, the Bigfoot thing, there's a lot to digest with the Bigfoot thing. You know,
there's so much with that. There's so much, to me, that's the history with it. You have to understand, like even as far back, like into the natives.
Right.
There's all of that, and then there's hard evidence.
Yeah.
So there's can you fake a footprint? Sure, but the number of them, where they're found, there's been hair, there's audio recording, everything. And for people to come out there, they're like, oh, there's no evidence. You know, we were talking about the people being negative on your trips, but like also like the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence.
Right.
It's a quote from somebody, but
Some smart person.
yeah, some smart person said that. But so
Link
like
that smart person's name right here.
But so like what gets me though with this area though is this park, you know, people watching this that aren't from here aren't gonna, I think when they're thinking of Ohio, it's just cornfield or whatever, but like Ohio has an incredible amount of topography to it and
diversity
and we have it's one of the states that has everything.
I mean, we're in the foothills of the Appalachians,
and you guys have, what is it, 17,000 acres of land and almost 3,000 acres of water.
What's the story behind Salt Fork?
So it was originally going to be a water supply, and you know the lake was very big and almost immediately was being used for recreation. So the state kind of looked at it as an opportunity to make a really big park, kind of a premier park for the state. I have seen the original like proposal for the park. It was crazy, you know, like just what the things that they had planned, you know. So yeah, the idea was to make a really big premier park, you know, kind of a crown jewel of Ohio. And I mean, they achieved it for quite some time. What really was the, you know, crown jewel of Ohio, like so. That was kind of the goal initially. I mean, construction on the dam started in the 60s, late 50s or through the 60s, you know, and they bought up all the land. And I mean, it very quickly turned into a recreational use, you know, rather than county water supply or whatever. And very successful. I mean, this is, you know, Southeast Ohio hunting is a big draw. You know, everybody hunts here. So, you know, we've got a lot of acreage of public hunting land also. So, I mean, that still gets used. But so that's kind of the story behind Salt Fork. I mean, we're not a terribly old park.
Was it 19?
Yeah.
The lodge opened in 72.
Yeah, like 70 to 72 was kind of, you know, it didn't, there wasn't like a big grand opening. It kind of opened in phases and, you know, so all through the 70s, this was a really, you know.
And how long have you been involved with the park?
So I actually worked out here in high school. Just summer jobs out here in high school, and volunteered out here when I was a kid. Volunteered doing naturalist programs. Yeah,
That's awesome.
And then I got hired as the seasonal naturalist in 2012. So I was here seasonally for 2 seasons, 2012, 2013, and then I transferred to another park in 2013 called Lake Hope. My job became permanent. I went as a year-round naturalist at Lake Hope, which is a beautiful little park in southern Ohio in Vinton County. It's kind of
Vinton County. That's
on the Willy Wags. Yeah,
we've talked about that one because that was one county that we always wanted to do. I mentioned it to you that my old team always used to talk about, because Vinton County is like
the least populated county.
Oh, okay.
There's like 12,000 people in the whole county.
And they always say to have a Bigfoot encounter, you need two things. You need people and a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people there, so.
So I transferred there, and I worked there until the summer of 2016. Then I transferred back here, so I've been back here, and I had done. The summer of 2013, I had done a kind of a one-off Bigfoot hike during the summer that we kind of billed as an event. It wasn't so much like a part of my normal rotation of programs. It was kind of a one-off thing. And it was really well attended. Not my best hike in the world as far as the information that I had. Not very memorable. It always gets forgotten that I did like the first one off. I did the first one.
He's claiming that now.
Put it into Wikipedia.
I am. I try to slip it in whenever it's. I did do this one-off hike once in 2013. I try to slip it in whenever possible. But so the naturalist during the interim between my time here while I was at Lake Hope, the naturalist was a naturalist. She sort of farmed it out. She contacted Bigfoot researchers to come, and she hosted it and facilitated the researchers with everything they needed, and then they kind of did the hikes and provided all the information. So I inherited that format when I got back here. That was the Bigfoot hikes were here to stay, and I inherited that format. And the first couple of years, I was actually kind of like, I was a really passive participant in all the hikes. I was like, well, yeah, so great for all of you guys to show up. My name's John. I'm going to keep you safe on the trail. And what I would do is kind of shuttle between groups and make sure everybody, we usually have such a big group. We got to split them up into 2. And I would kind of shuttle between groups, and I'd, do some owl calls out there and talk about nocturnal animals, and then not really touch the Bigfoot thing as much, because it was, you look at it, and then as time went on, there was, so much information out there, and it became much harder for me to be dismissive of everything. So I got to know the Bigfoot researchers better, listening to what they had to say, participating in the conference, doing things like that. I helped with a really great conference up in Coshocton this year called the Sasquatch Triangle Conference, and it was really fascinating.
We heard about that one.
Yeah, it was.
I think Sarmiento was there this year, wasn't he?
I think I remember seeing something about it.
This past
it
one?
was. Yeah, it was in May. Yeah, it was. It was really fantastic because it was. They kind of took it back to what the conferences used to be, where they had speakers, and it really was kind of the open forum to exchange ideas and thoughts, and it was really fascinating to watch. Talked to a lot of great people. So I've gotten much more involved since then. We actually had such a big group. The hike in June, we had such a big group that I ended up leading one of them, which was great. I was really excited to lead one. It's also been weird with the success of the YouTube videos that we did. I mean, I was asked to do the first YouTube video in October 2020 as part of the sort of Halloween themed.
Scary Squatch.
Yeah, it was a spooky Sasquatch, which I think was how it was billed. I wasn't involved in that one.
He's like, that one wasn't my idea.
But that one's the most successful video though. That one has the most views. So I don't know what I
think people like that element though. They like Bigfoot to have that. That horror element. Yeah,
it was. The
beast in the woods.
Right. So it was. That one was kind of. It was sort of organized very quickly. And I don't get much because I love the Bigfoot community because they're open and warm and welcoming, and they don't rip you apart quite like some other Right. And the most blowback that I've gotten from any of the 5 Bigfoot videos or any of the recordings that we've done was I was talking a mile a minute during that first one and mixed up Patterson and Gimlin, and I said Patterson instead of Gimlin, and boy, people ripped me apart for that. Like, how dare you?
Take it very seriously.
Yeah, man, that was my biggest. That's been what people have busted me on.
And I think we mentioned it earlier, but like, it seems like such a simple subject at its surface. It's just like, oh, people see this Bigfoot all over the country, but there's so much minute detail and like history, like stretching back into like prehistory in the United States or in North America. It's humbling, like hearing about all the different stories and the minute details of the different like regional Bigfoot creatures that are subtly different, and all different colors of the rainbow.
It is very strange. When we did a 4-part video series. And when I was putting that together at one point, I think it was between the first video and the second video, I had a tote of Bigfoot stuff that a researcher friend gave me to use, and to photograph prints and stuff that I could use for slides because this is all virtual, and then books and things. So I had a whole tote full of stuff. I had stuff that I'd ordered off Amazon, stuff that I'd gotten from the library. Every electronic device that I had something pulled up on it, And I had texted my researcher friend Dave, and I had said, I think if I closed my eyes, or if I open my eyes right now and turn off the lights, the Patterson Gimlin film would project out of my eyes onto the wall, because it is like you get this sort of like Sasquatch brain, where it's saturated with all the from like the skeptical side. I can see if you have been pounding Bigfoot for a month and a half, like I was, where you're like you're mainlining Bigfoot all month. And then you go out in the woods at night. You're gonna see something. You're gonna see something. Like I can totally see that.
Unfortunately, that is. weren't we just talking about this on the drive? As like people, you get so almost in the zone that everything you hear, you're gonna hype yourself up.
Yeah.
You're gonna overdo it.
People argue different points. So like to like a pedestrian standpoint would be like, does Bigfoot exist or not? But then to like the initiated, it's like, is Bigfoot a this or that? Like what is he more closely related to? Like did he migrate across the land bridge 10,000 years ago?
I think he's more of a this.
He's more. Then
you start getting into paranormal. Actually, people
right. Just talking. Bigfoot's an alien. Bigfoot's Chewbacca. That's my favorite.
Yeah, but when that's you do get people who are hardliners on one point of view or another, and it's really hard to like.
Oh, I got chewed out the last time I was here when I was at the conference. Like we were all having a good time. We were down at the bar downstairs. It was super relaxed. And I can't remember where the guy was from or what team he was, but I was always on the side that no matter what, if this creature is going to be, formally accepted by science, you have to have a body of some type.
Right.
You have to have a physical body, whether that be something that is deceased naturally or that has unfortunately been killed. That's just the way it works. And, no amount of, I don't think any amount of true video evidence would ever be enough.
Right.
And so I stated that part of my opinion, and this dude just jumped all over my ass. And I'm like, dude, like that's, if you want to go out and chase Bigfoot with your taser, go ahead, dude.
Team Taser.
Yeah.
Shout out Team Taser.
Dual wield them, dude. Like more power to you, but I'm not going to be that guy.
Well, and as far as the paranormal aspect, I usually don't touch that.
Good.
And it's mostly because
I do.
Those people will attack you. Those people will attack you.
My opinion is, and again, it's just my opinion, but so there's infinite mysteries in the universe, but every mystery ever solved turned out not to be magic. Every mystery that we've solved turned out not to be of supernatural origin or turned out not to be magic. Now, again, unsolved mysteries out there, I get it, but as far as my opinion goes, if something like bipedal, undiscovered, hominid existed, probably a flesh and blood, probably evolved from another, species. There's probably intermediate, species out there. There's probably evidence of speciation, like you were talking about with regionality, things like that. I talked to some researchers. I think it was actually at the Sasquatch Triangle Conference, because it was just something that was banging around in my head. In that Mississippi Valley, you've got like Momo and the Fouke Monster and the Honey Island Swamp Beast and all those.
So many.
Well, if you think about a lot of those prints, you see a lot of these three-toed prints. Now, some of them are obviously like misidentified alligator prints. Like there's a lot of them that are alligator prints that are just,
Right.
But in the thought experiment that kind of went in my head is like, oh, is this an example of like bottlenecking of like, species of a speciation? Like, is this some sort of bottlenecking of a population where like there's this is there like a congenital defect?
Because you got to figure if that species is there, their gene pool's that big.
Yeah. So
if you have a defect or a malformation, you're gonna.
And again, it's not.
Like
it was just a thought experiment. Like I'm like, I wonder in the Mississippi River Valley if there's like if there's some sort of like speciation going on down there with these three-toed, skunk apes down here.
And all the other Bigfoot all over the country talk trash about them.
Right.
Well, that would actually
green-toed ones down there in Mississippi.
Just an idea, though. I mean, the way that human beings have kind of divided up our country or our continent is like big chunk of natural land, and then there's roads around it, and then cities that kind of like make these isolated populations. So that would explain why things are so like they're so different, all colors of the rainbow.
Like black squirrels. So everyone's familiar with the black squirrel. Well, black squirrels are melanistic gray squirrels. There's no difference in their DNA. They just have a hypomelanism, which is their body produces more pigment than a normal gray squirrel, so they're black.
It's like the influx of albinism.
Right. It's the opposite of a leucistic or an albino animal. So you find that with snakes. You find it with all kinds of species. You can find we had a melanistic fox here once. We had a black fox.
Oh, that was pretty.
Yeah. So you see that, but you see it in city parks where every squirrel is a black squirrel, and it's because the city parks are an island within a concrete ocean, basically. So the gene pool, those recessive traits just keep getting
passed around.
Yeah, turned around. So you could see it's fun to think about.
I think the camera will
take a pause there.
It's fun to think about that, in my opinion. Like, is there evidence of like speciation if this animal exists? Coyotes, eastern coyotes are distinctly different from western coyotes. So can we postulate that something like Bigfoot is distinctly different from the one that's in the Pacific Northwest?
That's the thing of, like, even what. See, then to me, I'd also like to get your opinion. So I know you stated earlier you're on the fence about the whole Bigfoot thing. In your opinion, what if you had to think up what it could be, where would your mind go? Like, what is this animal if it is here? Or even then, would it be an animal?
Yeah, my opinion is it is an animal. I don't, I'm not of the school of thought that it's some like relic, human species, because there is that, we've got, and we keep discovering more and more of our ancient ancestors, and we keep discovering that we've interbred with more and more of our ancient ancestors, But I personally think that I like the idea. I can find merit in the idea of like the Gigantopithecus, remnant population of Gigantopithecus crossing the land bridge. Probably not migrating with humans all the way. You know what I mean? Probably migrated either before or after humans. Right. And then. My opinion, probably set up shop in the Pacific Northwest, and radiated out from there, rather than migrating like the normal model for human migration. Like if you're looking at the peopling of the Americas, how humans migrated first through America, like going down the West Coast and then all the way into South America and kind of coming back up the Mississippi River, and populating the Northeast. That seems like it would not make sense for an animal, for humans following large, following megafauna as food sources wouldn't make sense, but for an animal that say has an established foraging, like already has kind of an established template for foraging, say in the Pacific Northwest, in like a temperate rainforest, it would make sense that they would kind of find a nice comfy spot and set up shop there, Now, I'm all speculation, but then my opinion is that if it would exist, it's probably an animal. I don't really, not to disrespect the paranormal stuff, but I really don't. I don't see, there are a lot of animals that weren't recognized by science that were later discovered had
the mountain gorilla.
The mountain gorillas
was pure folklore.
Tigers at one point were folklore.
I think you told me something about what people
like
suspected of tigers before they found them.
They were hearing things like tigers had these like they could get inside your head. Like they get
it's the eye of the tiger, dude.
Right. Well, it turns out they couldn't, but tigers actually existed. You know what I mean? So, something like this existed, I would see, and I like the paranormal side of it because it contributes to that modern folklore.
Mm-hmm. It keeps the pot stirring.
Yeah, it does keep the pot stirring. Again, I'm not a hardliner one way or the other. And the cool thing about science, this goes back to what I said about people thinking about science and conservation and using critical thinking. The cool thing about science that I've always admired is science, if the facts are there, will change on a dime. Like if you guys would go out, find Bigfoot today at Saltport State Park, it gets confirmed. All of a sudden, it gets added to textbooks. You
heard it here.
Right.
Let's go.
But that's how
you'll be the first person to know.
That's how science works. Science doesn't care what you believe in.
Yeah, no, science isn't about your feelings.
So,
about the hard facts.
The cool thing is when the evidence is there, when there's a proof there, it changes on a dime. You know what I mean? We knew the Earth was flat for a while. We knew,
we still do. No.
Right. What do you mean, John?
Things that we'll never talk about on the podcast.
I told my manager I vetted this podcast pretty well. Don't. So that's the cool thing about it is that if it is discovered, if it would be discovered, it would change on a dime.
Now, how do you think, in your opinion? How do you think that would shape how, the general public's view of parks in general? Like if Yellowstone came out and was like, "Hey, there's Bigfoot out there, bro. Be careful when you're camping." Do you think that would be a negative thing to the park? Or
I think in 10
thing?
years it would be another giraffe. A giraffe is kind of a fantastic animal. Like you think about it, with this big goofy a deer camel thing with a giant neck.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
It's stranger than fiction.
But every kindergartner knows what a giraffe is. Right. You know what I mean? I think in 10 years a Bigfoot would be another giraffe. But I think the implications are larger. You think about like the timber industry. Mm-hmm. How would that affect? Because that animal has to have a big home range.
Right.
And I think, in my opinion, if they exist, they're probably relatively rare. I'm guessing since they're not crawling all over the place, I think, if something like that, you have to look at like the economic implications of it, the conservation implication, public hunting places,
mm-hmm.
do we close down this area because, so we know about these animals. We know this is their breeding season.
Right.
Now we got to, do we close down this area?
Now, this is kind of getting a little bit conspiracy with it, but do you think that that's almost why there has been no official recognition to the creature?
I don't know that that's the reason. Again, though, I am at the lowest possible echelon of any of that. You know what I mean? Like I educate the public on nature.
I'm not saying like you're
right,
saying
no.
Because when it's explained that way, how it could be almost a detriment to having it as a confirmed species because of all the changes that would have to be made.
Right.
So like you say it like when you think about it that way, you're like, well, man, I mean, like, because look, just the overall, the amount of video evidence, the amount of eyewitness reports, the amount of everything. It's if it isn't Bigfoot, then what is it?
I guess right.
We all know it's just a bear.
I think that would. I think if it were right, it's clearly
just a bear. Just a bear running, standing.
Right, a bear raiding a chicken coop. Yeah. No, my opinion is that the public outcry for something, because Bigfoot is immediately recognizable.
It's like Ronald McDonald.
Yeah.
Everybody knows
right. If I ask a group, of 12 people to draw me a bear, I'll get 12 different bears. I'll get like the 3-circle snowman type bears. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'll get scary bears. I'll get really poorly drawn stick bears. Mm-hmm. I'll get teddy bears. I'll get 12 different bears. If I ask a group of 12 people to draw me Bigfoot, chances are 11 of them are going to be Patty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it is immediately recognizable. Absolutely. You know, so I think that in that instance, not to get, because again, I'm not involved in the timber industry. I'm not involved.
You don't know how
I know Ohio. I mean, I think Ohio would probably be, a great place to start. Yeah. I've always said
I don't think anyone would call that one though.
I've said since we
who had Ohio for Bigfoot.
Yeah, I've always said I think Smokey Bear should retire and we should replace him with Bigfoot.
That would be an instant hit.
But yeah, right.
Rebrand.
I think think about it. Like you've got an animal that's so wild you can't even get a good picture of it. You've got an animal who doesn't have Twitter. Like he doesn't care about any current events. Like Bigfoot embodies like the American spirit, And I think
that's a very good
rugged individualist.
Right, yeah. So I think
spiritual thing
you really want to grab people on, get people on the side of, conservation, your cause, stop wildflowers. Or don't stop wildflowers. Don't do that. Stop wildfires. Bigfoot's out there. Like I think we should replace Smokey Bear. Now, no offense to Smokey Bear.
I think I'm running with his new quote. We're gonna stop wildflowers, dude. I've made my stand.
Yeah, but I mean, so I don't know so much about that. I know that whenever I've gotten involved with some of the conspiratorial stuff involving Bigfoot, like whenever I've gotten into those conversations. One thing that I find is conspiracy theories, they're a good way to they make you as an individual, they make you feel a lot more special. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's a big chunk of it. Absolutely. Is like they're keeping secrets from us. That's that they,
right.
You know what I mean? And it makes I personally don't think that I live such an interesting life that anybody cares about what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So I live a kind of boring life. Aside from the Bigfoot thing, I get calls all hours of the night. I would get calls about, my canoe trip, things like that. How many people have signed up already for the canoe thing? My state phone is like a big red phone now for Bigfoot stuff. Like people call me all the time about Bigfoot stuff, so like that's made it very interesting. But I don't really get into the conspiracy stuff so much. I think as far as the conservation goes, because like I said, I think first and foremost the Bigfoot movement is a conservation effort. I don't know of any Bigfooters, who would look at an area and say, man, I wish they would put, they
need another Dollar General right here.
They need a parking lot here. They need a shopping plaza right here. You know what I mean? Or anything like that. Like, I'll never, give another dime to public lands or anything like that.
That is a very good thing because conservation itself in general is kind of like it's reached this, it's not a low point, but it's just not.
It's not right in the forefront of everybody's mind. And that's a big part of my job is to try to get it there. We're trying to get people out thinking about nature, protecting the natural world. That's kind of a big part of my job.
With technology growing bigger and bigger and people getting more involved with their devices and stuff, I think conservation's kind of...
Yeah, those losers are watching our podcast right now on those devices, Dylan.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they're out there like on a hike.
It is. I did a hike this morning and someone identified a caterpillar with their phone. They took a picture of it and I'm like, well, this is the demise of my job.
Well, I'll see myself out.
Yeah. I'm like, this is...
Download the Naturalist app.
Yeah, right. It really is. And I'm like, this is... this kind of sucks because this is like the demise of my job.
You smack the phone out of their hand.
Right. Yeah.
Not on the hike.
So, I didn't even notice the caterpillar like that. They just noticed it walking by, and
it'd be worse if you didn't know what kind of caterpillar it was.
Right, it would be.
Like,
well, that happens sometimes. I don't mind saying I don't know, but normally it's like I don't know. I'll look it up in this book,
Wait, what's a book?
Yeah,
John? Now you're just.
And I was reading a book
crazy.
the other day, and I literally tried to make the text bigger on the paper. That's
did.
how you know I'm too far gone. And then I caught myself, and then. I don't know. I took a cold shower after that. I didn't know what to do with myself. So, I mean, seeing as you're kind of like the person to go to, or a lot of people go to tell their Bigfoot stories, like what's the most colorful story you've heard?
I guess the most colorful one, there's a minute chance that he may listen to your podcast, and it's so specific of a story that it can't be mistaken for anyone else's. So I might pass on the most colorful one.
Give us the second most colorful one.
I was told that you could see them all of the time if you had a mirror, like a convex mirror that they only appear when they want to be seen. But if you had a convex mirror and you look behind you, so you go out in the woods and you look behind you with it, you can see them all the time because you're able to kind of bend the light spectrum. And
That's kind of terrifying, actually.
So that's the most colorful one.
Yeah, that's horrifying. But
I'm ordering a convex mirror on Amazon.
yeah, I mean,
after this.
I've been told some pretty colorful stories before that maybe aren't the best to repeat on your podcast,
Sure,
but I can tell you afterwards. But yeah, I mean, we get stuff like that. Of course, the telepathic thing.
Yeah.
You know, I talk to folks who say like, oh, they can communicate, you know, telepathically, and there's even some pretty good, what I consider good researchers who, you know, consider like that they're able to like zap. You know, like
do the
you know the infrasound and stuff.
That, like,
and you know, I get it, but I don't know about that. You know, I'm even because of the naturalist. The naturalist thing throws a big wrench in the open-mindedness.
Right.
You know, like
because you believe in things of the earth, you know,
right?
like
Well,
natural
right.
things.
Yeah, that kind of throws a wrench in some of it, and I start to like nitpick, so to speak. So when they talk about eye shine. You know, that one sticks in my craw every time.
There's no apes.
There's no great apes with that tissue at the back of their eye, the tapetum lucidum. There's no great apes that have that. So it would be unique among great apes. Now that said, there was a Russian scientist who was studying anomalous humans. So people born with tails, things like that. People born with that little hole up on there, you know, like he was studying, trying to figure out like where these atavistic traits came from. And he identified some people with a specific genetic background that like one of their eyes would be reflective.
Whoa.
You know what I mean?
Like
But not like an owl, you know.
Right.
They would just have, you know, they'd shine a light and they would have like so. But again, that's like really grasping at straws. You know, it really is like
you really have to.
when
It's
you
got a confirmation bias.
when you have to do those like
for
mental gymnastics to get to your
the mental gymnastic and then have the perfect situation.
Yeah,
to fit
right,
that.
right.
It's just
So you know, I get lost in the weeds quite a bit with a lot of this stuff. I mean, I just had a huge long conversation about the idea of reproduction with these things, like how that would work since they're vertically oriented like we are.
Well, we know how it would work.
Right. We do
eggs.
know Bigfoot eggs.
We know,
but you know, like you think about it, all of the pictures that people have, you know, where I think it's widely agreed upon amongst researchers that they're vertically oriented, much like us. So they're
not when they're making babies, though.
right, but their pelvis is probably pointed the same direction as ours.
Well, yeah, if they're bipedal,
Right.
or bipedal,
Right.
yeah, because
So a big reason why we have problems, we have this big old head and this pelvis that's pointed the wrong direction, and we got narrow little hips. You know, that's the reason why we're like laid up after childbirth.
Right.
You know what I mean?
and then these chimps, they shake it off. Gorillas shake it
Right.
off. Like,
Yeah,
just
but
had a baby,
gorillas,
gotta get going.
they're not obligate bipeds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's I had this whole long conversation about like, because I myself, I get lost in the weeds because I'm like, you know, a raccoon can have babies and then move along.
Right.
You know what I mean? This thing, it's probably got to be an ordeal. You know, like you think about something with shoulders this wide. You know what I mean?
Someone's gonna
like
bring in
it's
a Bigfoot
birthing a
placenta
linebacker,
into your
yeah.
station.
You know, yeah, I'm like this.
Straight out the
Right. You know, so like myself, because of the whole naturalist thing, sometimes I get kind of lost in the weeds with, you know, and I don't try not to become the well actually people, but I do start to like, look at it and nitpick things because the eye shine, since I have started this, the eye shine is kind of stuck in my craw. Cause I'm like, okay, so I would get it if it were a special adaptation unique to that animal, but that's also, you have to do those mental gymnastics.
I'm not a believer in the eye shine, but there was that one case I was telling you about where we saw the swaying
Too much
eye
Jay.
shine. Yeah, we saw two.
I thought they get
To
Jay
us,
to
it was
send
like
it to us.
it was like orangey. No, not the video he had. When
Oh.
we were on an investigation thing.
Oh, gotcha.
We saw two fairly far spaced out, kind of an orangey color eye shine, and it did this swaying motion back and forth, which is like an ape thing,
Yeah,
like a
it's
territorial.
I mean, that's an
display.
animal thing. You look at a lot of
Yeah.
animals,
But
and
it-
it's a way to get like a more 360s.
perception.
You know,
Yeah.
It was just sitting there swaying
Yeah.
at the end, at the bottom end of this kind of field thing, and it was the only time I've ever seen it. And like you said, since I'm big on the whole what is plausible and natural to the to what everything else we know, And so with other primates, we don't see the eye shine. So I'm not a big proponent. I'm not
saying it couldn't happen. You know,
exactly.
Definitely, like anomalous evolutionary things happen.
But scientifically,
all
it's
the
just
time.
unlikely.
Yeah, it's just like for what we know, basing it off facts that we know. You know, so I myself, I can get. Sometimes it's nice to be around the researchers because it grounds me a little bit. Because I will, when left to my own devices, if I'm thinking about it too hard, I do get lost in the weeds quite a bit.
Right.
You know, because I'm thinking like, well, you know, this thing's got it's upright and it's got this pelvic. And think about it, like the caloric needs of a lactating 800-pound animal.
She's angry.
You know what I mean?
And she needs
like
food.
Yeah, like think about how. Yeah, right. Exactly. You know, like what's the neonatal mortality rate of
what's
these things?
What's the protected? Like,
you know,
because you never hear about these things being dangerous,
right?
And you'd think that mother would be. You got an 800-pound primate defending a young. You think you'd hear about some kind of aggression in some way.
And there are, you know, even at Saltfork, there are like what I would quantify as urban legends. You know, there's this story kicking around that we closed down part of the campground at one point because of Sasquatch activity. I cannot find a single shred of evidence that ever happened. I think I know where the origin of it came from. If you look at our campgrounds, it's A, C, E, F, G.
Yeah.
So we don't have B and we don't have D. And I think the origin is the fact that there are two loops that don't exist.
Then people
and I think that they kind of, that's like the seed that got planted. But I can't find, I've talked to retired employees. The assistant manager here is like the historian for the park. He knows his stuff. I mean, he's a history major, so he knows. You know, if I have a question about park history or local history, he's the guy to go to. And you know, not a single shred of evidence that we ever closed down, you know, a loop because of like anomalous activity in the woods. You know, there was nothing. I think it is a pure urban legend, but it gets repeated all of it. I've heard it at conferences. I've had people swear up and down that.
I was there when
This is also something that gives me skepticism about it is the number of people who claim to have pulled up to a barricade with two rangers telling them to go away because there's a Sasquatch back there. We've never been quite that busy in the middle of the night. You know what I mean? Because the number of people that claim that they were here and got turned away on some road, you know, and
Might
in
have
some
just been a ranger pulling a joke.
Right.
Man, you know,
it's a slow ride.
so that never happened as far as my knowledge can go. You know, and I've also been here. Like my family's been in the area for a long time. Like I grew up here, so you know, that is as far as my opinion goes, like a pure urban legend.
So what is if you had to choose one, what is to you the weirdest thing that you've experienced at the park?
I was actually recording one of the videos for our YouTube channel, and I was telling another story. Like I was kind of next to my fire my idea was I wanted to do like half of it was going to be pre-recorded, and then the other half was actually in this room. I was talking to Don Keating and Dave Wickham, who's one of our researchers. And so half of it I wanted to be kind of like a Finding Bigfoot, you know. I wanted to be so I went and camped solo out in our group camp and did recordings, and I, you know, not to get all spooky ooky on it, but I did have like some electronic failure, and it might have just been because it was chilly out.
Paranormal Bigfoot, man.
Right, yeah, you know, but it was like in the middle of the night.
Bigfoot's mind powers doing it, John.
Zapped it.
You know, I also have never. So I've played Coyote Calls to get the coyotes to kick up. You know, the Ohio Howl works better. I found out.
Really?
Yeah, the Ohio Howl really freaks the coyotes out.
That's a cool.
Did you
call,
play it on
man.
June 8th? Because there was one on June 8th. I don't know if are you familiar with that one from just was it last month?
Yeah, last month.
I'm not
Over by
sure.
Cattail Road.
No, I'm not familiar with that one.
It was on BFR. I was wondering if you heard of it. People were like fishing in a cove back there, and they heard a air raid.
Heard an Ohio Howl.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm no. This would have been in March, but anyway, I was telling another story like by my fire. You know, I was making a pot of coffee and talking, and you know, I had this delusion that I looked like Survivor Man or something. You know what I mean? Like, but you know, I was telling a story and talking and looking at the camera, and the middle of me talking, mid sentence, you heard this like, you know, nice like home run.
Yeah.
You know, and I kind of froze, and then there's like 6 or 10 awkward seconds of me like,
What was that?
staring off into the woods, vacantly. That one was pretty weird. And like also as soon as it happened, like, hairs on the back of my neck and everything. And I was like, I started whispering like I was in a, like I was in a hunting show. You know what I mean?
Just
Like,
reenact the scene from Blair Witch.
did you see that? I hope this mic picked it up. You know what I mean? Like so that one was pretty, strange. We've had some weird things. I told you the last hike, we had a more manageable group. It was a smaller group on our last hike. And at one point it was like somebody put a dome, over us and everything
The woods goes
everything
quiet,
just shut
man,
off,
yeah.
and it was a lot of people started getting jumpy for no apparent reason, like didn't know why they were getting jumpy, but everybody kind of got, and I from like, again, a skeptic standpoint, why you want jumpy, because like still our survival mechanism says there might be a predator out there.
It's dark. I can't see.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And anybody that says they don't get a little spooked out in the woods at night is kind of lying.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Now you might be spooked out and not care. I get it. Like I dealt with venomous snakes for a long time. I acknowledge that venomous snakes are really dangerous and that they're scary. You know what I mean? But I know how to handle the situation. You know what I mean? Yeah, right. Yeah. But anybody that's, it's in our DNA to be freaked out at night. Sure. We're diurnal animals. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's just the fear of the unknown. You don't know what's around. You don't know what's out there.
So everybody kind of gets a little spooked on those, on those hikes occasionally. Anyway, but that one was a weird one. I was out squirrel hunting with my wife when we were first dating. This was a couple of years ago, because it's Appalachia, so that's how you date. You take them squirrel hunting.
My wife's a vegan,
right?
Surprise, Taylor, you're going squirrel hunting.
Right.
Tofu hunting.
Yeah, we didn't go carrot hunting, though, so but the. Sorry, no. Some of my good friends are vegan. I'm not against that lifestyle at all. I'm all about farm ethics and stuff. So But anyway, we were out squirrel hunting and heard a howl, and I'm paid to identify animal noises in a lot of cases. You know what I mean? So I couldn't pinpoint it, but also I was watching a bunch of squirrels in a hickory tree, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna leave the woods because whatever is making noise, Yeah. So we got back in the car, and she's like YouTubing coyote noises and things like that, and she's like, I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was, and I'm like, yeah. I said, hey, YouTube the Ohio Howl, and she played it. She found one of the ones that had like the spectrogram, and she's like, oh, that sounds a lot like it. And well, what is that? And I'm like, oh, supposedly it's a Bigfoot. So I did have that happen. No smoking gun, again, it wasn't enough to knock me off the fence. I talked to Matt Moneymaker once, and he said, he's like, there's nothing that will make you believe until something steps out of the woods and you see it face to face. And there's nothing that you will be on the fence until that day. And I'm kind of with him on that. Like, I'm going to be on the fence until until I'm proven otherwise, or until like there is an actual body or something. Like, I'm going to be on the fence. And, as far as that goes, like that's another part of my job, is to officially acknowledge things that exist, so I can't turn around and say, like, even though Bigfoot's not in any field guides, he exists because we don't know. Except right.
It's in there.
Was it 1970 something?
So old.
But there's nothing like that. And that's not my intentions. Also, I'm not being interviewed by you guys to like convince anybody that Bigfoot exists or say that I believe Bigfoot exists. I'm doing it for an entirely different reason. First of all, it is fascinating.
It is.
But the number of families that come out for the hike, that's one thing that makes me really happy. I get families who are all happy to be there. They got their kids out in the woods, like they're out hiking with their kids. That's how I grew up, was my family went out hiking. Yeah, right. But I also, I more than anybody would love for Bigfoot to exist. I would love for Bigfoot to exist.
It would make your job kick ass.
It really would. And also, like, how big of a hipster I could be about it? Like, I was doing it before it was cool, Like,
you go the way of Bob Gimlin and just show up wearing a cowboy hat and be like, yeah, I found him.
Yeah, right. Like, do you think, like, if naturalists all of a sudden started having to teach people about Bigfoot, I could be like, oh,
During
like,
every conference he gave, he would just come in like Stone Cold, just
right.
bashing cans.
Yeah, right. So that is, yeah. I mean, it would be cool.
And that's the thing. Like, you gotta think of like, what would that be like though? What would that be to have like to have a
Would you want that
species confirmation? But would that ruin the chase? Would that ruin the
the people
half the fun is the hunt?
People on Finding Bigfoot would be like, well, you change the name of the show, or we just
Yeah,
have to
right.
cancel.
Found Bigfoot.
Found him.
Refinding Bigfoot.
Well, I mean, but we know sharks exist, but it's Shark Week.
Oh, Bigfoot Week?
Yeah, we had
Oh my
Bigfoot
God.
Week. You know what I mean? Like, so
I would
don't
buy cable to watch that.
I don't know that, like Shark Week's like a holiday in my house.
Oh, yeah,
you know
of
what I
course.
mean? So like, you think about it, it's like we know sharks exist. So we could have Bigfoot Week,
God.
every year.
But
Like
it seems like too, like every state, every like big, TV channel now has their own kind of Bigfoot-esque thing. There were so many of them done. That's another thing too. I remember like as soon as it was like almost like as soon as what was the show? Ghost Hunters started.
Then
You just had this like in general paranormal boom that just kept going
renaissance.
for,
that was like
for
the
years.
demise of the History
And
Channel, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it just okay, but Ancient Aliens is a guilty pleasure of mine. It is a disgusting.
You give me some Cheetos and some
dude.
Ancient Aliens, it's over.
I will murder a bag of
Weekend
Flamin'
gone.
Hots and a whole gallon of sweet tea, and just hear these dudes rant about how my ancestors were these green people. Love it, the aliens, dude. That is a guilty pleasure, but but that's it's all good TV and it's all entertainment. But like to me, it almost like it kind of poisoned the well.
It does cheapen it a little bit.
Yeah,
I
it just
agree.
kinda-
I agree. And
sweeps the feet out from under the whole movie.
there is a part of me too that recognizes that, where some of it's like it is,
And no detriment to Moneymaker, but what cracks me up is when me and my wife used to watch the show. Everything was Bigfoot, man, on that show.
Right,
Everything,
yeah.
like,
But I think
a stick would break a mile away, and you're like, "What? Chill,
Like, it's a squatch.
Just
Dude,
a
that's
stick.
a squirrel. Nope.
just a stick."
Nope. That's a squatch's foot right there. It's like, that's a squirrel tail, dude.
That's
Come
a squirrel. That's a squirrel.
Yeah, I mean, and I can kind of recognize especially producers. Now, I have very limited experience with media in general. This is what I'm more used to is doing interviews and things like this. But I mean, even like local papers have butchered what I've said.
Oh, we've had magazines.
yeah.
My old team, we had magazines. Like, you have to be so careful what you say because you're so easily misquoted or what,
Right, yeah,
what
I mean,
you say is easily.
I was quoted
Spun.
once saying this program is boring. I know it just, and I'm like, that's not what I said. I didn't call my own program boring. I said,
rad, dude.
I said, like when I read it, I'm like, why on earth would they quote me saying that I called my own program boring? That's not, I was talking about something completely,
It's like doing a painting going, yeah, it
That's why we like the
sucks. Hang it
podcast
up.
so much. The long form is great because I guess somebody could clip something out of this potentially, but it gives people the opportunity to kind of clarify or represent their entire opinion as opposed to just.
And I try not to be divisive, like as far as the Bigfoot thing goes, because there is infighting that happens, and you can recognize it, and it does crack me up, like you had the whole school of thought that Bigfoot's an extraterrestrial.
Dude, it's just all the interaction I've ever had with those people. I don't mean that in a bad way.
people.
Yeah, I said it. Hell with it, I'll run with it. But yeah, those people, like, I get that you want to have like a spiritual connection to the earth. I get that you want to feel like you're a part of the thing, but like to feel like an animal, a whole species has singled you out. It seems like this
it's
disgustingly self-righteous kind of.
and that's what a lot of it is. I mean, I love animal rehab. People who take the time to do that. But there's a lot of that is also homocentric. It's human centric.
Oh yeah, they could give a shit less about the well-being of those animals.
So
in the end,
like I agree that some of that is like I'm so special that this species has
sought me out,
sought me out. Or it's like every owl that I see, that's my spirit animal because or it could just be that you live in a place that has a lot of owls. But so I try not to, but like. the alien thing, Bigfoot's an alien, we get see that's going to be what gets cut out of this. As I said Bigfoot's
John, the naturalist just confirmed.
yeah, right. But I actually have a theory about that. Like, again, this is a big if. This is all speculating that something like that exists. Like, so you're looking at like a
Zoom in.
Camera's off. You're looking at like a reasonably intelligent primate, All right. We're a reasonably intelligent primate, and there's been interesting studies done on us. We haven't changed as far as we've had the Industrial Revolution and everything, but our brains haven't changed for quite a while, the way our brains,
evolutionarily we're kind of boring now.
Yeah, our brains haven't changed that much, but so we've got like a reasonably intelligent primate, I think, and I'm sure you've seen, Pennsylvania has a high propensity of UFO, Bigfoot, like corresponding sightings. Yeah. Pennsylvania's got a lot of those. My thinking is, all right, and this is a big if. This is saying that there is a UFO and a Bigfoot. This is a big if speculation, but my thinking is, bright flash in the sky, reasonably intelligent primates probably going to wonder what the heck is it.
Oh, well, with intelligence comes curiosity.
And going to go check it out. So then you've got, Billy Bob driving in his truck, bright flash, and Bigfoot runs across the road. You know what I mean?
And Billy Bob's probably as intelligent as that Bigfoot.
That goes into, causation does not, correlation does not equal causation. You know what I mean? Like, just because you saw those two, I would imagine like many animals, if Bigfoot exists, probably can recognize energy, like a power source. You know what I mean? I don't mean energy like crystals and stuff. I mean like, but like
that also.
Yeah, right. But Bigfoot can probably, if it exists, can it recognize like a power source, Sure. And would be curious about like, why are all these trees on fire now, or what was that big flash in the sky? So that's my thinking.
Or aliens are as curious of Bigfoot as humans are.
Maybe they're like, what the hell
These
is
humans
that?
are boring, but that thing.
Yeah, look at that thing. Look at that thing.
That thing with a pointy head.
I haven't seen one of those since we're passing over the Himalayas.
Yeah, right.
So what's like the quintessential Salt Fork Bigfoot? Like what does that look like?
The reddish brown, between 8 and 10 feet tall. Some reports, I get kind of skeptical when we start getting like over 12 feet tall. You start talking about that's a big animal. That's a giant.
Animal,
I mean, I'm a pretty short guy, but that is still a giant animal. But like 8, 10, 10 feet tall tends to be. Ohio's or Salt Fork's sightings, many of them are running across the road. It's like a 2-step out of the woods, cross the road, back into the woods. That's kind of the quintessential, Bigfoot in Salt Fork. We get a lot of reports of, I think, I can't remember which. Probably you're talking about like things standing up, you know what I mean? Right. Like, so there's a lot of reports of that where like people are heard something and then all of a sudden something stands up and walks off. So there's a lot of like silhouette reports where it's, that, I thought I saw something move and then something stands up and walks away. Those are kind of the quintessential Salt Fork reports.
Now, in your opinion, what is your kind of, what would you pick as the best area of the park for it to have kind of,
do you want to say that out loud?
Never mind. Tell us later. You guys will figure it out.
That's actually where I was going to send you guys after this if you want to go poke around.
Yeah, never mind. You guys aren't going to know
yet. Yeah. Okay. I can. We'll save it.
We'll be left. You're left out.
Yeah, because I've got a canoe thing at 5, so I probably won't be able to go poke around with you too much. But I was going to send you to a place.
So what's the second best place?
What's the second best place?
well, like Morgan's Knob, Parker Road, Bigfoot Ridge, like those are the ones that I can find on Google or whatever.
Yeah, Bigfoot Ridge is interesting. There's been a lot of interesting stuff. Not necessarily like the name. That's our primitive campground.
Right.
The name, obviously, we named it that for fun. You know what I mean? But there has been some interesting stuff. Don Keating had interesting things happen on that. There's a white bridle trail is down the hill from there. Goes to a cemetery and there's a farm back there, like an old farm. It doesn't exist anymore. But that trail had lots of activity kind of before things went real crazy. So that's still that's almost one of the spots on like the Bigfoot pilgrimage in Salt Fork. Morgan's Knob, I'm not sure about that one. That sighting, I I don't really know about, Morgan's Knob. I'm not sure. That's, it's right here. It's real close to the lodge. It's real heavily trafficked. Like it literally is like just right down there, so it's really not that far. It's heavily trafficked. It's short. I don't know, how I feel about the Morgan's Knob one. I mean, there have been sightings at the cave, around in the area around Hosak's Cave. One of our good roadside sightings, former lodge employee saw something basically like something was sort of setting on one side, like on one hip on the berm of the road, stood up, stepped across the road.
Wow.
Over there. Yeah, actually, Dave, our one of our researchers that helps with the hikes, he got a really cool footprint from that one in like the loose stuff on the side of the road.
Have you guys had a lot of kind of footprint?
Yeah, we've got a really compelling one from just down the hill from A Loop in the campground. That's very fascinating. It kind of lends to the idea of a mid-tarsal break because it was a very flat or a very steep hill, and its half of the foot is basically flat on the hill. And if you think about how we would tackle a vertical, we would dig our toes in,
right?
Well, this is like the front half of the foot was walking up the hill, so that mid-tarsal flex that, that everybody thinks that something with that.
And if you guys don't know what that is, like Jeff Meldrum does a bunch of talks on that.
Yeah.
So
Like it here.
yeah, we'll put something.
Yeah. The mid-tarsal flex, that the footprint that came from here is one that's really fascinating because again, its location, that would have been something kind of flat-footing it up an incline, so that's an interesting footprint. There have been some other ones around. A gentleman took some pictures. A gentleman who was not a Bigfooter. He was actually an artist that wanted to tell his Bigfoot story. Took some pictures of an interesting set of footprints that he found that almost looks like it was it was a big one and then it set down a little one, you know what I mean? Like it had a smaller one that maybe it was carrying. So it was a really interesting, and that was in the snow, and that one I can't I can't, and I wasn't there. And, he took pictures, he took good pictures of it. He put his pocket knife down in the footprint for scale. So at least we know how big it was, So it was, I actually went out and bought the pocket knife just so I could kind of, it was like a cheap old timer. So I went and bought it just to so I knew exactly how, so yeah, that, those are compelling. So yeah, we get a lot of those, types of things, but yeah, I guess good spots, the good sightings. That one at Hosak's Cave was a good one, that was a really good one. That one I think is still on the BFRO site. I think you can look that one up. Yeah, because it was. I think Dave was still probably with the BFRO when he took that. He was like the researcher that took the report. So
does Salt Fork kind of go all the way over to Coshocton County? Like, do they touch?
No, we
just
don't.
Not familiar with the area at all.
Yeah, so there's like Coshocton and Tuscaroras kind of touch above Guernsey.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the idea of like the Sasquatch Triangle is like Coshocton, Tuscaroras, and then northern Guernsey County. However, it's basically a contiguous woodland. Like, it's not segmented that much between the two counties. It's pretty, if you look at like the vegetative cover, along Interstate 77, it's pretty green on either side all the way up, so it's pretty continuous,
Bigfoots don't have county jurisdictions.
Apparently. Yeah, they don't pay attention.
Got to turn around.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we don't have like a, deer fence keeping the Bigfoots in Salt Fork,
That's all the game wardens are doing. I'm like, no, turn around.
Yeah. But so yeah, I mean, that's the idea of that Sasquatch Triangle that Don Keating, he's the one that kind of coined that idea. And what he did was he kind of took a map, figured out a geographic area of like a high number of reports and sort of,
quite a few.
Yeah, and he kind of put pins in it. And I've got a map down at the Nature Center that I welcome people to put pins in if they've had a sighting. And there's a notebook you can write and you can go in as much detail as possible. It's not a formal like BFRO thing.
Sure.
And there is a lot of pens in that specific area. And then there's a lot where like older people come in, they don't read the sign and they stick a pin where they're from. So I got to take it. I got to take it out when they leave. You know what I mean? They don't read like the title of the map.
From
So
New
they
Jersey.
yeah, right. No, like the middle of Columbus and the middle of Cleveland are really popular. And people,
Crawling with Bigfoot,
if I don't catch them, right away, like I'll see him do it. If I'm talking to somebody, I'll see him do it. I'm like, just let it go and take the pen out later. Or, so my Bigfoot ledger has like Bigfoot story and then like Joe Smith from Akron written and then just a date. You know what I mean? Like, so they're
on 6th
Yeah,
Street.
right. Like, so that's pretty, but there is in that area, there's been a lot of sightings and I've talked to some people, I've talked to them if I'm not real busy and they're writing in the notebook, and I read the notebook so people aren't like drawing things in it or whatever. Right. You know what I mean? Like I don't want
no one does that.
I try to make sure all the stories are like all the stories are PG in there, So
I found out how the Bigfoot's reproduced.
Right.
So to keep tradition, we need to go down there and just write Threshold Paranormal.
Yeah.
Right.
Cincinnati, Ohio.
Right.
Pin day.
Yeah. That is one thing you learn working in a public park is no matter what you write on a sign, people won't read
People
it.
don't care. People don't care.
You're
People
wasting
don't read.
ink. You're wasting ink.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, man. Well, I think we'll probably go check out some of these. Well, it sounds like it's pouring rain. So
It does sound like it is pouring. Yeah. I'm starting to get concerned about my canoe thing. So
Might turn into just a swimming thing.
yeah.
No, but so thank you for talking to us about all this stuff.
You're very welcome. It was a
park
pleasure.
is beautiful. The lodge is beautiful. When is the Bigfoot conference too?
The
If you guys
Bigfoot
wanna let 'em-
conference is in May.
In May?
It is the first or second weekend. I'll have to check. I think
All right,
it's early in May.
We'll throw a link up for
Yeah.
everybody, but definitely come
I'm
check
not
out.
even sure I don't know if the next one has been officially scheduled yet.
Okay.
So,
So it's just
who
kind of
knows
on
what will be
yeah,
happening.
basis,
yeah, right, yeah.
The world could be over, and
But-
Bigfoot has taken
And then
over.
we have, if you don't mind me shamelessly hawking things.
No, go ahead. Blow it up,
but
man.
August 14th we have another Bigfoot hike. It's probably our last summer Bigfoot hike. It's Saturday, August 14th. It's free, open to the public, no pre-registration or anything like that. Yeah, that's so August 14th, if anybody wants to come out and experience the Bigfoot hike, hear stories. We always do like a campfire portion, like a campfire chat before the Bigfoot hike, where the researchers tell stories. It's kind of, like you said, it's kind of a town hall where people can tell their stories. They can ask questions. It's pretty fun.
Definitely.
We usually try to bring in, we never know who. It's always kind of like we kind of piece it together as we go. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that.
Absolutely. That's
but
my
life. We always try to bring in somebody special. We had Amy Boo from Project Zoo Book last time, so she's pretty fantastic to talk to. She was very popular. She's also a teacher, so great at public speaking. Her like teacher voice was just spot on. She had like adults setting, crisscross applesauce, like listening
Everybody
to her,
joining in a song.
like it was fantastic to listen to. I love Amy Boo. She's just fantastic to listen to. And of course, Dave Wickham, he's always present at the hikes. He's one of our go-to researchers. He's great at casting tracks. Like he is one of the go-to guys for casting tracks. He knows how to use hydrocal and stuff. And he's a physical therapist. So hearing his point of view, because he collects data points on how people walk. You know what I mean?
This Bigfoot
That's
has
his job.
tendinitis.
That's his job, So looking at tracks, it's interesting to hear his perspective on things because he can collect data points from a track. Like this is how this thing interacted with the face of the planet, Like so he's always there. It's always a good time. So August 14th, and then I think we're going to try to do a winter like squatching hike. We're going to try to do one this winter. Bill it as more of a special event, but we're going to try to do. We're going to try to do a winter
They
Bigfoot
turn white.
hike.
That's
Yeah,
what
right.
Bigfoot's They shed their summer coat. And I don't know. It's all speculation.
Yeah.
You guys have a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, the it's just the ODNR.
Okay.
Yep. And if you look, we're probably the only, government YouTube channel with a Sasquatch playlist. So
That's a claim to fame
it's
right
pretty
there.
cool. We
Popular one at that.
It is very popular. It's been crazy from my perspective because as cool as I think my wildflower hikes are and stuff like that, I get 20 people, but 350 people,
That's
and then the success of the YouTube videos, like, I would occasionally see people out in town here who would say, "Oh, we went to a snake thing you did a couple of years ago. It was great." And it was nice. Like I'd go out to dinner with my wife and, oh yeah, the nature guy with the snakes and whatnot.
Now you're the
that's my
Bigfoot guy?
background. My background's in reptiles and amphibians. But now it's like a really common occurrence to walk up, people walk up and they're like, hey, Bigfoot.
Bigfoot John.
I was out grocery shopping the other day, and that's what a guy walked up to me and started snapping his fingers and pointing, and I'm like,
Can I help
hey, yeah, hey, and he's like, hey, Bigfoot, right? And I'm like, yeah,
Thanks. Park visitor. Yeah.
I'm like, so the success of the YouTube videos has been great, but also like the essence of the YouTube videos is a park message. So that 287,000 views or whatever, those are 287,000 people that got a park, got our conservation and park message out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are really important. Yeah, they're fantastic. We like doing the video. I like doing the videos. When we were kind of shut down and not doing public programming, like I did a lot of like Steve Irwin. I tried to channel my inner Steve Irwin. Like I'd find a snapping turtle and I'd get down on my belly and prop the camera.
It, yeah.
Like, oh, look how cool this is. And I just didn't. Those were cool videos, but man, I did like one kind of tongue-in-cheek social distancing Bigfoot video.
Oh, I saw that.
Did you see that? And I didn't ask permission to do that one, but everyone liked it. And I did. And I was really worried that the Bigfoot community would get upset, but when it started getting reposted on Bigfoot Facebook pages, I'm like, oh, good.
I'm good.
But yeah, the Bigfoot videos were very popular. So
That's great. I'm glad people are watching your
yeah,
stuff.
again, but watch it all the way through. I'm not like letting the cat out of the bag about Bigfoot. Everything that I talk about in those videos, you can look up in a book or look up online. Or it's me speculating, like,
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you can follow us on Twitter at Threshold Para. This is usually
Don't do Nick's job. This is the big guy's job.
All right, guys. So you can follow us on Facebook at Threshold Paranormal. You can follow us on Twitter at Threshold Paranormal Podcast. You can follow us at, God, it's been a while since I've done this, guys.
He's out of practice.
I got dad brain now. Just had a kid a month ago, so you'll have to forgive me. You can follow us on Snapchat at Threshold Para. Other than that, you can email us at thresholdparanormalpodcast@gmail.com. Reach out to us on Facebook. You can go to the website, www.thresholdparanormal.com. We also have our merch store up there, so go get you a shirt. Go get
and
you
we
a
got
hoodie.
a new shirt design.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
we're gonna have one.
Yeah, we
We're
got
gonna
a
have a
new
new
shirt
one.
design coming.
It's really cool and stuff. It's got a Bigfoot on it.
And
It's a different kind of shirt. You guys are like, it's different.
And kick off the new dads here. Congrats to Bryan. He also just had a baby girl.
We're back to no sleeping.
And with that, hey Bryan, why does Norway put a barcode on every ship?
Why does Norway put a barcode on every ship? I have no idea.
So they can Scandinavian.
Okay, we're done.
Dad jokes on fleek.